Guess we'll get started and open the TAC meeting this morning. We might have an additional TAC member arrive today, maybe running late. So to start off with section 1, are there any public comments? Are there any public? Seeing none. Are there any conflict of interest declarations according to today's agenda? No, thank you. And we'd like to approve the September 5th, 2018 meeting minutes.
Moved. Second.
Saw first and second. Any discussion?
No. Start with the third item, please.
He wanted. Okay, seeing no discussion, we approve the minutes. If everyone would bear with us, we'd like to change the agenda around a little bit. Would you like the third one?
No, let them go first.
We'd like to start with the infrastructure trial first so that we can release Chris.
Yes.
Yeah, I apologize. I have to run to a school right after this, so I'm here just for the infrastructure trial. But basically, what the infrastructure trial is where we take basically all our systems and we basically get them prepared for testing. We make sure everything's up to date, the latest browser version, the latest software, and a lot of different things. So one of the things, the Florida DOE gives us a letter every year, and it tells us that we're required to do an infrastructure trial, and that the superintendent has to send a certification memo, I guess, back to the DOE. We're working with the assessment team, and we're trying to, make sure the dates are right, that we do these things. There's never a good date, so I'll let you know that in advance, because every time you talk to somebody, it's like, oh, I got this, got that, and it's like, but there's never a good date, but we just have to do this. So it's kind of how we operate. So we proposed a few dates here. Originally, we're asking for school feedback. We're going to be getting feedback from the testing coordinators and the school-based technicians, and hopefully they bring that up to whoever else at the school that actually it's important to. And the date that we've proposed is 2/11/2019 for the infrastructure trial. Once we get feedback, we know this is going to be a tough week with Thanksgiving next week, so we said we're going to ask for feedback until after that date. And if that date works, then we will send out a bulletin to all the appropriate people at 12/17 and 2/11/2019. I'm sorry, is the date. I put the calendar up here, so we do have a day off that the school students aren't there on the 8th, so it gives them an extra day of planning in advance of that. So that's why that date has been chosen so far at this point in time. Sir, it's pretty brief. It's just giving you an update.
Since elementary schools are paper-based, will they still be included in this?
No, it'll be secondary.
Okay.
So there may be some things for elementary, but right now it's secondary. Any other questions?
Okay, great.
I appreciate it.
So we'll continue to go out of order as we wait for our new member, because it's important to introduce him and then address the board policies regarding advisory committees. So let's go on to number 3.03 for report card process.
All right. Well, thanks, PJ Dialst, FT and student reporting. And when we talk about report cards, it's not even remotely just me. It's also Don Pumphrey, Chris Bersad, Natasha Bell sticks her head in and makes sure we're all doing our job. It's Adam Miller, who's doing the training piece, support piece, and I said Chris, who's the printing center. So last month we were able to print about 80,000 report cards for secondary students. What's kind of nice and easy about that with our roughly 75 centers is that there's one version and it's pretty straightforward, but there's a lot of calculations and GPAs and quarter GPAs, which really don't mean anything other than what you did in a quarter. It doesn't accumulate to your transcript. What does accumulate to your transcript is when you're awarded a semester credit or full year credit with our EOC classes. So that went off really well. We're also looking at ways to go online with that in the near future. Our other 85,000 students are on 15 different platforms, report cards, the elementary standards-based report card, which comes in K-6 version, K-6 for dual language version, and 3 AMP, which is accelerated math report cards. So that's a little bit more complex, and we're in the middle of that, and we're working our way through our new platform, and that's where teachers can validate their marks and stuff. Just a couple things about, that's really the report, but I just want to talk while I'm up here about SIS and some of the things that we're looking forward to doing in the next few months. Is we're currently in the middle of a pilot with online course requests. So that's building your entire master board, which is your schedule, which when you have a high school of 2,500 kids, it's having teachers put recommendations inside the system, having students pick electives inside the system. When you're ready to process it, it puts it into a suggested master board process so that it's now done all in-house. When you think about how much paper that will save, every time you hand someone a piece of paper, here, can you recommend this student for this? Can you fill out this spreadsheet? Students, take this home and have your parents sign it. Now we can do that electronically. So we'll be doing that at 3 schools. We're looking at Palm Beach Central, Wellington High, and Don Estridge down in Boca. We're also doing an online discipline module. And again, another big paper waster is teacher writes a referral, it goes to the office, it gets revised, it gets reprocessed, and then it gets entered into the computer. There's a really easy, simple way to do that online, so we're also piloting that as well. We have our school-based team process, which is being developed right now, and Natasha is heading that process up as our project manager. And that's really going to be able to track kids through their different tiers. And school-based team looks at all kinds of things. It could be an attendance referral, a discipline issue. It could be an achievement. It could be a situation at home. So any of these situations flows right into that. And we recently built out very quickly a mental health edition to help our mental health counselors be able to track mental health services. And that was part of Senate Bill 7026, the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act of 2018. So we're in the middle of that, and we're working hard. One final news is the adult ed module is we're looking at developing that and putting that on the project list for next year. And that's a bolt-on that will really allow them to do some enhancements and something they've been looking for. Gateway is going strong. We officially closed that project out. I think we had over 110,000 student accounts that have been activated and looked at, over 6 million hits to date. So everything's going really well. So I wanted just to kind of fill you guys in on that process.
Excellent. Any questions? Okay, let's turn over to Natasha to go over the Trailblazer updates. I'm sorry, we're going back up. I apologize, to the board policy. Yeah.
No problem.
All right, good morning, everyone. And good morning to our existing TAC members, and we wanted to, of course, welcome the new TAC member. So as a result, I'm going to kind of go through the board policy for advisory committees and specifically for the TAC. Many of you guys kind of know a lot of this information because as you became TAC members, you were presented with it, but it was just a refresher and kind of a review. I will pause through each of the slides. You each have the presentation. If there's any questions or any clarification, we can kind of talk about that. And I'll rely to Ms. Hall if I say anything incorrectly. So to start, of course, our TAC committee is made up of district leadership and board-appointed industry technology experts. So, of course, we thank you all for serving on our committee. With, of course, the purpose is to serve as advisors to the board. And it is governed by School Board Policy 1.09 and specifically 1.096, which I'll delve into a little bit more deeply. I got to figure out how to talk and do this at the same time. Okay. School Board Policy 1.09, which is kind of the mother for our specific policy. It provides guidelines and standards for advisory committees for the school board of school district of Palm Beach County, especially specific to how we run this meeting when it comes to the rules of the order, the meeting organization, of course, the subjection to the sunshine laws, public records requests, our quorum, our committee chair, and all the details are in this, again, high-level school board policy. Of course, our committee is, we advise the board. The policy advises that we attempt to meet at least once quarterly.
So do we want to ask questions as we go through, or?
Yes, as I mentioned, I will pause on each slide to allow anyone on the committee to ask any questions or if there's any clarifications about any of the slides. I definitely welcome you to stop me and we can address any questions. So our specific policy for the Technology Committee, which is 1.096, it was adopted in 2011. It talks a lot about the purpose of our meetings. Specifically, the mission of the TAC is to provide expert knowledge, guidance, to bring industry best practices and decisions specifically for our infrastructure and strategy. The committee's responsibility, of course, is to gain an understanding of our technology across the school district, including our schools. Additionally, the TAC committee reviews, provides feedback on our technology contracts, so from time to time, we'll bring contracts to these meetings, hardware, software, consultants, training, etc. Section 2 of the Technology Committee School Board Policy talks specifically that you guys are, of course, advisors to the board. Any questions on this slide? Continuing. And some of the areas are highlighted just for emphasis, specifically about providing advice on districts' technical infrastructure consistent with best practices. So we really appreciate a lot of the feedback that the committees give us when it comes to what's happening outside of government. And of course, any emerging infrastructure technologies, this is the venue for that. Feedback on our capital plan, our annual or 5-year capital plan, which we've presented to you guys in our technology plan as well, and any other matters related to technology or specifically requested from the board or superintendent. One of the key areas of Part D is the area that the committee is not involved in, which is decisions or advice concerning selection, administration, or evaluation of instructional programs or the selection of vendors or staff. So as you're aware, the committee is composed of 7 members appointed by our board, and we welcome Mr. Taylor when he's able to join us. And that's also part of the larger board policy 1.09. Another piece of here is that each person has substantial technology leadership and technical experience. So again, we appreciate all our TAC members. Part 4 is that the meetings will be conducted and provided according to the rules of board policy 1.09. And that we do follow the parliamentary rules in the latest edition of the Roberts Rules of Order. And the TAC charter, our charter for this committee, will remain intact unless repealed or amended by the board. Okay. The last slide, just to touch on any topics related to security. They will not be managed, at least in this public TAC forum, and that this slide really just kind of emphasizes the public records law exemption, where it mentions meetings, documents, anything that reveals anything related to security system plans are made confidential and exempt by statute 119.071. So just wanted to put that up as a reminder as to why we don't necessarily get into security topics at these TAC meetings. Any questions, any follow-up? All right, thank you.
So, yeah, I was waiting to see if anyone else had it. In view of this, are there any discussion that we might have around the frequency of the meetings and the composition of the agendas? So I noticed we have to meet at least quarterly. So we're doing that. We're meeting monthly, more or less, except for when there's no agenda items. So I take it the schedule's fine with everyone?
I think it's better to have them on the calendar,
Right.
and then you can cancel them if you need them, versus trying to rally them when you need us.
Yeah.
That's a better, because then the time is blocked.
Okay, so we'll leave that. And composition of the agenda, is there a need for us to provide more input to the agenda, or to continue to have Deepak and his team to come up with the agenda?
Well, I'm a short timer, and I think it's worked so far with him coming up with the agenda items as well, so.
I was telling Dwayne this morning, actually, we kind of like make the agenda ourselves, so we want to hear from this team also, the TAC members, what exactly they want to see. Anything they interest them, please let us know.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons Dwayne is bringing that up.
I think it's worked well, and I think the committee has at times, added agenda items of things that are timely, but
Great.
I found that process to be effective.
Okay.
And I think finally on security, I think we understand that being in the technology field, I think we're always going to emphasize security, but we're not perhaps going to ask for it to be disclosed here, and so I think that was fine. Okay.
Yeah, and on the agenda, it would, most of the time we get it early enough. I don't know if you want to set a certain kind of time, like 2 days before the meeting or 3 days where we receive the agenda, or if everybody's just happy with kind of what they've got.
I believe Marlene is not here. Is Marlene here?
No.
She was up front, I guess, waiting
Yeah,
for
so
Mr. Taylor.
Marlene tries to put that like on a Thursday, or I think we are required to put agenda on a Thursday until there's a last minute agenda developing or something like that. But mostly we try to do that like Thursday prior to the week.
I know when I try to prepare, it's not always there early enough. So the earlier the better, and I know people make last minute changes and it's tough, but the earlier the better if we could encourage it. Okay. All right, great. That's great timing. So we'll close. We'll close that topic. Thank you. And
Mr. Chair, out of order. I just want to bring up something because I think it's important. I'm the representative on the ISOC committee, and by January, early February, I'll be permanently relocated out of state. So I don't know if we can do it here and work it in, but perhaps another representative for the ISOC committee. Because that's an important committee that we have representation to make sure that, our dollars are supposed to be going where they're supposed to go, and it's important representation. I don't know if we can do that or not, or do you have to wait for the next meeting to put that on the agenda? Because they meet quarterly also.
I think we've put out the word now by you stating that, and so we could give time between now and the next meeting for our TAC committee members to think about perhaps volunteering for that post, and maybe do you want to follow up with an email, or how would you like?
So I was suggesting Mr. Watley to send an email to me, Marlene, and Mr. Barbieri.
Right.
And we'll try to. It's since board appointed, so Mr. Barbieri has to appoint a board.
Oh, certainly.
Your replacement.
Certainly. Well, I was also going to say, in the event that there's another meeting in December, because sometimes that's up in the air at the holiday time. Mm-hmm. If there is another meeting, I'll try and make that one, obviously, and then make my move to, do the formal notification in writing from there. But I just want to make sure the ISOC committee is covered no matter what. I believe Mr. Ratcliffe is the alternate.
Right. I'm more than happy to go if somebody tells me that you're not going to be there. Then I'll put it on my calendar. Or what I could do is just put it on my calendar from now on and just make it a permanent. Okay. And then any documentation or anything that you have, you can hand it over to me, and I'd be more than happy to.
And they just had their quarterly, so they probably, I'm going to take a wild shot that they're not going to meet again until after the holidays. So, okay. Anyway,
it's the first Friday or something like that of the quarter.
No, it was on a Wednesday or Thursday this last time. So
it was last week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So let's go back to item 1 and welcome Mr. Dwayne Taylor here. Welcome. And do we want to start, Mr. Miller? Do we want to start going around just kind of quickly introducing ourselves?
Sure. Dr. Adam Miller, Director of Education Technology for the school district. Nice to meet you.
Tom Wally, representing District 6 for Mr. Barbieri.
Michael Fowler. I'm with NextEra and FPL, and I don't know who my appointee is. I got to meet her again. It's a woman. I'm trying to think of her name. It was Jennifer.
That was Jennifer.
And then who replaced Jennifer? I'll go look it up.
Okay.
I'm embarrassed.
you as well.
It's Marsha Andrews.
Marsha?
I'm the same.
Oh, you didn't.
Marsha?
No, but that's okay.
Yeah, Lorenzo Valdez. I'm one of the IT managers in the IT infrastructure department. I'm sitting in for David Wilhelm, my director.
And my name is Deepak Agarwal. I'm the CIO there in the school district.
Good morning. Dwayne Piper. I'm the TAC committee chair and the CIO at South Florida Water Management District, and I represent Ms. Andrews.
Good morning, Mr. Taylor. Natasha Bell-Hayden, IT Project Management Director.
Good morning, Dawn Pumphrey. I'm the Director of IT Enterprise Applications.
Good morning, Ray Usler. I'm the Director of IT Security.
Hey, good morning, Roger Pelser. I'm representing Chuck Shaw, and I retired from the school district and started the virtual school.
Good morning, I'm Larry Paget. I'm retired from the school district. I'm representing Karen Brill.
Morning, my name is Radcliffe Brown. I'm representing Dr. Deborah Robinson, Director at Palm Beach County.
Good morning, James Campbell, Principal of Seminole Ridge Community High School.
I'm Lisa Steele, Principal of Galaxy Elementary School.
Good morning, Kim Hall, Senior Attorney.
Okay, well.
And my rep is Erica. Erica Whitfield.
Thank
Good
you.
morning. Nice to meet all of you. I'm sorry I'm late. BMW had me stuck in there trying to get my rent-a-car. Otherwise, I'd have been here early. Got there at 8 o'clock. But love to meet you and look forward to seeing how we can move this forward as far as curriculum or whatever we're here to do as far as technology speaking. Being from California, I feel like I'm on a desert island here in Palm Beach County. Nothing personal, it's just what it is. There's no Apple computer, there's no Google, there's no Microsoft for me to go to. So here we are. So I'm at CCE, and I've basically been there 2 years, and I'm their technical director there. And nothing personal. I hate PCs. I'm a Mac guy, just so you know.
He's putting it out there.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So we just finished going over the board policies for the advisory committee, and they're on board docs, so you could definitely take a look at the slides. And we also talked about how we received the agenda a couple days ahead of time for us to review and come here prepared to make comments and what our role really is. So that was a good discussion, so welcome again.
Thank you.
So that moves us through to item 6, infrastructure trial. Actually, we didn't do the Trailblazer. That's the one I messed up last time. So we will move to Trailblazer. Dr.
Appreciate
Miller.
it.
And skip you twice.
We're okay.
Good morning, everyone. I want to provide you with an update on our Teaching with Technology Trailblazer program, which has been very successful, and we're very excited about it, and just happy to be here and talking more about it. Please remember, with our Teaching with Technology Trailblazer program, the purpose is to develop a cadre of teachers at each school. They're sort of technology leaders on their campus that will help train the other teachers at their schools, but also for them to explore different ways to meet student needs through technology. So we're trying to do a whole system change here with the Trailblazer program. So this year, we've trained over 700 new elementary school Trailblazers this year. We added over 200 additional secondary school Trailblazers, and we're proud to say we have over 1,300 Google certifications in our district, which Google did admit that we are in the United States, we have the most Google certifications out of any school district. They said under the table that we are in the world, so they won't put that in writing. So we're very excited about that. What's new the last few months? We've added, thanks to work with Chris Persad, and we've added one additional elementary Trailblazer to each elementary school. I'm going to talk about our ESC Trailblazer Pilot project in a minute. Also working with Chris Persad. Great, we've deployed an additional 26,000 Chromebooks to our schools this year. Also, something really interesting, Google approached us. They're interested in doing a case study of our Trailblazer program because they believe that what we're doing here can be replicable across the country, and they'd like to be able to examine it and then share their findings with the world, which we're very excited about. Before I go on, I do want to say the Teaching with Technology Trailblazer program is a collaboration, I forgot to say at the beginning, between the Departments of Education and Technology, all of the IT departments, as well as teaching and learning. So the focus is really on the pedagogy going on in the classroom and the tools that teachers can use. Let's talk about ESC Trailblazer Pilot. The General Teaching with Technology Trailblazer program is really geared towards general education classrooms. We do have a number of ESC classrooms, self-contained classrooms across the district. We want to make sure we're meeting their needs as well. So we partnered with the Department of ESE to identify 15 classrooms across the district, self-contained classrooms with students. We've identified classrooms with students with autism, students with intellectual disabilities, and students with emotional or behavior disabilities. These are self-contained classrooms, and we saw from our data that they weren't selected to be Trailblazers for the most part. So we want to make sure we're meeting their needs. So we've actually visited, the ESC department identified 15 teachers that would be most helpful with this pilot project. We've visited their classrooms, we've met their students, and we talked to them, talked with those teachers about what, you can talk about devices with Chromebooks, what's best meeting the students' needs. For example, with students with intellectual disabilities, they frequently come with physical disabilities. So typing on a Chromebook may not be most appropriate for some students. So then maybe it's an iPad, or maybe it's another piece of technology. And we're exploring that together with those 15 classrooms to see what best meets those students' needs and trying it out. And we're going to use that learning to help guide us in the future.
Question on that, sir, if I may. So it sounds like you're using assistive adaptive technology where needed in there. I just want to make sure on that.
Of course, okay. Yes. Definitely working with the ESC department. There's lots of different options for assistive technology, and it could look in different ways based on the student needs, so we're definitely looking at that, yes. And you can see there is a tweet from Discovery Key, I believe, one of the classrooms. So students happened to be receiving some Chromebooks on that day, and they were very excited about it. So lots of smiles. I'd also like to take an opportunity to talk about our Leading with Technology Trailblazer program, because we are definitely pushing the envelope with teachers, but to enact some system-wide change, we also need to work with our school leaders and our district leaders. So we created the Leading with Technology Trailblazer program, and we've really broken up into two parts, school leaders and district leaders. And we're offering the same trainings to our assistant principals, our principals, as well as our district specialists, managers, and directors on all the Google tools for education and how they can be used. And we're doing that in different formats. For our assistant principals and our principals, we're offering trainings during their division meetings or during their regional meetings. For example, with elementary principals, our staff does a training right before their division meeting starts, and they have pretty good turnout, and those go anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour on various different Google tools. And that's based on a survey we gave to the elementary principals of what they needed, because they have different needs. And we're working with middle and high school principals as well to get those up and running. In the district office, we are offering 3-hour sessions on a monthly basis. Same training as the teachers get, but we're also looking at some opportunities with efficiency using technology that we might not have used before to make our work simpler and faster and more efficient. We're also developing a model classroom for our school principals. Just thinking about this change initiative we're enacting, what does the classroom of tomorrow look like? I would say we're not really sure what's going to look like in 10, 20 years, but we do have some strong ideas. We want to create a model classroom in different schools, so when principals have division meetings, we can have the principals visit those model classrooms and learn from that. And we're doing that with collaboration with teaching and learning departments to make sure they're always focused on the standards and the technologies there to assist the students meeting those standards. You can see over to the right of the screen, we have one of our interactive flat panels on display. We are training, since there's going to be an interactive flat panel in every instructional area in every classroom in the school district over the next 2.5, 3 years, we want to make sure that our school leaders and our district leaders know how to use them well, and how to present with them. So we're offering trainings on a monthly basis here, as well as other locations. A fun part with technology I like is earning badges. I like putting badges on my email. I did this training, I did that training. And the Teaching with Technology Trailblazers have their own badge they like to put on their email. So we wanted to offer that to our district and school leaders. And you could see it down there in the bottom right or left, the Leading with Technology Trailblazer badge. And the requirements to earn that is attending a presentation called Leading Technology Change that we offer. And we offer it at different PLAs, Principal Leadership Academies, Leaders Learn and Grow, and other areas for leaders to receive that training. But then also they have to pass the GCE Level 1 test. Since I'm up here, I was just going to give a very brief update on our interactive flat panels. This is going very successful. Our goal for this year is to deploy about 2,500 interactive flat panels to 168 schools. We've deployed nearly 1,000 so far to 62 secondary schools to date. We're finishing up our secondary schools now, and by the end of December, we're going to do some test sites, some 4 schools. We're going to do whole school deployments of interactive flat panels, and you can see those 4 schools there: Don Estridge, Lake Worth, Jupiter, and Pokey middle schools. We're really looking to see what learning we can get from deploying these in a school-wide setting, because right now it's just been limited to the Trailblazer program. We're also going to start deploying interactive flat panels to elementary Trailblazers the last week in December, and that'll extend all the way through April. Hopefully tonight, let me start over. That panel you see over there is a 75-inch flat panel. That's appropriate for a regular classroom. When you talk about media centers or larger instructional areas, that's not appropriate. It gets hard to see. So we actually bring to the board tonight a bid for an 86-inch flat panel. It's pretty cool, actually. So hopefully that gets passed, and we'll be deploying those to media centers starting in the end of December all the way through April. And then from there, we do the rest of middle school, whole school rollouts. Then we'll roll into elementary schools, and then finish with the high schools. And I have a video. Oh, I guess I don't have a video. Change YouTube restrictions on us.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, any questions?
I noticed you're going to do whole school deployments, and with any deployment of new technology, you're going to have some people who don't adapt well to the new technology and being able to use it. So what has been your experience? I know the Trailblazers are probably people who want to do it, but is there any experience with people who are having difficulty adapting to the new technology?
Sure, and that's the whole point with the Trailblazer program, is we're going to have those early adopters, those innovators at every school that want to jump in, just like you're saying. And then we're going to hit the majority of teachers that probably use technology, but maybe not to this utmost. So we're partnering with SMART, the company, where they have trainers that are assigned to each school site. Specifically for these whole school rollouts, they're doing on-site trainings in advance, as well as my team is working with those schools to try to alleviate that. I don't, to be honest, it's not going to be 100%. There's going to be some teachers that may not use this or may be a little resistant, but we're going to work with them. We specifically picked those 4 schools because the principals are very gung-ho about the project, and when the leader's on board and a majority of teachers are on board, it's going to help move that change process faster at that school. We're hoping to learn some lessons as well from that to help us when we do the rest of the district. I hope I answered your question.
Well, Mr. Ratcliffe, I think, too, with the age of the teachers, so, every year we always have an attrition rate of retirements. You get dinosaurs like me that are 59 that, we had to make our times table and tape it on our desk. We didn't even have calculators back then, and that's how we figured out the times table. So as these younger teachers are coming in, they're they're just from babies. They're technology advanced, and I think it's an easier thing to say that the age level of our teachers in the classroom is certainly making the difference as you see retirements happening within the district.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure that, some people say sometimes you buy all these nice things and then they don't use them and they sit. I don't think would sit well with, some of our board members.
That's a great point, and if I could address that, the point of the Trailblazer program really is to marry the training first and then the delivery of the technology, because in the past it may have been there hasn't been training before the technology's been deployed. So we're doing the training first, as well as some change management strategies, quick wins, short wins, things like that, removing some barriers for teachers to adopt these items to hopefully alleviate some of that.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback that having gone through a lot of this with the school district, I think this is probably the most innovative approach that we've used so far. And I'm really going to be, I'll be anxious to see what the results is and what you think, your success rate is with this.
Thank you. So I'm interested too.
No, I think your approach is a very good one. And I applaud the whole, because a lot of times people tend to ignore the change management aspect of projects, and we always like to throw the technology out there, forgetting that there are people behind
Absolutely.
it. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you, and I think...
Yeah, I just want to make 2 quick points to address that, because this is something that we realize, and we have the same concern, right? That it's easy to get that first group, but then as you go further in the bench, you're going to meet some resistance, and it's going to feel overwhelming. So the 4 middle schools that were identified first for whole school implementation were based on a READY index that we developed. So we intentionally selected schools that we felt were ready, and the purpose of doing those first is to learn what the implementation looks like at a whole school, because we know that we're going to run into some things that we don't even know, not just on the technical implementation, but the training and the adaption rate and so forth, and from the first time that we met with SMART, we know that this is one of the largest implementations of this type of technology in the country, right? So our very first meeting with them, when we started to talk about how quickly the rollout would go, our philosophy has been we will roll out as quickly as we can train well. And so that's the commitment that Adam and his team have made to the project, and we were lucky enough to have vendors that agreed with that, because they've seen implementations that don't go well when you just roll the technology out, I think also the blended model, there's an online module that teachers complete before the panel gets there, and then a brief face-to-face, then the delivery of the panel, and then follow-up afterwards. So the way that Adam has designed this and the team have multiple touch points per teacher. Because the other thing that I learned this, they put a panel in mine. We spent about 3 hours training everything it did, right? And then they left, and then it was a week before I touched it, and I didn't even know how to turn it on. It's like, So that that big brain dump doesn't really work for people. They have to get it in chunks. So I think we've been real intentional about that.
And I have to applaud as well the SMART team. They've really laid out the trainings for the schools. Each school site will get at least 10 on-site training pieces, touch points, that they've really chunked the content for teachers. So it's just working together.
Are you able to see usage?
Usage of the flat panels?
Electronically?
Yes, I don't have that data though, but I believe it's run off a computer. Yes, so it's
run off a
Chrome,
computer, and so if they don't have something natively with the app.
Yeah. So Kim called. Yep. Worked with some projects. So technically, the SMART panels do have the functionality to monitor and control them. But that requires using a built-in Android module that in working with IT security, there were some initial concerns with that. So that may be something that can be revisited and brought on board if we believe it's going to be not compromise the security of the network. So it's kind of a yes and no thing. Technically, yes, it could be, but the functionality is not being used right now.
But if it's being run by a PC behind the scenes, you might be able to track usage through that PC.
Right. See on the PC side?
Where I'm going is you
that's
might be
true.
able to see just underutilization and focus your change management where they're not being used.
Great suggestion. Thank you. We'll take that.
Adam, I think one of the things that I was impressed with, that we designed this leading with technology trailblazers for the principals, but you were really intentional about teaching the change management process as a part of that with the principal leaders. So in that module, it talks about, building a coalition. It addresses, celebrating early wins and kind of reaching that tipping point for the adoption rate. So,
thank you.
Video?
Oh, yes.
Some people call them interactive flat panels.
So we know 2 of them up here.
Others call them smart boards.
So 67% of you said A, B, C, and D.
But everyone calls them a great way
Really cool tool to use.
to bring the newest technology into the classroom.
It's easier for most kids. Like, I'm a visual learner. Like, I like seeing things on like a screen.
11,000 screens will be in classrooms in the next few years thanks to the money raised from the penny sales tax increase passed by voters in 2016. From Spanish
¿Qué más tienes? ¿Un gato?
to science.
If I had this iron brick.
The smart boards display animation and videos. Using smart ink, teachers write in the correct answers. Text can be highlighted. At Wellington Landings Middle School, a lesson on World War I. Then an interactive quiz where students input answers and compete in teams.
Icebreakers, here we go. You're about almost halfway.
When they get to pull out a Chromebook or they get to go and use the interactive flat panel, it's so much more exciting to them than handing them a piece of paper and a pencil and a worksheet.
The teachers who already have smart boards have spent several hours training on the devices, learning skills like setting up a teleconference.
How do you motivate yourself to get your work done?
With the new technology, students and teachers literally have the whole world in their hands.
Do we want to play with Google Earth now?
Yes! I'm Rick Blackwell for the Education Network, keeping you informed.
Thank you. That last classroom you saw was the first classroom at Jupiter Middle, first classroom in the school district to receive the flat panel instruction. I presented that, I believe, at a previous TAC. It was kind of cool. We just rolled the flat panel in, and within a few minutes, the teacher was in the middle of the lesson. She stopped teaching and then started teaching the lesson again using the flat panel with Google Earth, which was very cool, and the kids were really excited. If you have any questions or after that, I'll be around later. We do have a flat panel if you want to take one for a test drive and come and play. We'll be there after the meeting if you come check it out.
Yeah, just to piggyback on what Mr. Brown said, because there's something we raised in the previous meeting also, you're planning to come back to us with statistics of
yes
this in the future? Okay.
Of course, of course.
Thank you.
And the teleconferencing, will that be available through the different schools? Now, if, say they want to talk to a VIP someplace, or say a doctor and whatever, or a medical doctor and certain things, and it's a health class. Would they be able to do a teleconference with the classroom and somebody outside the district?
Yes, we've been doing that with, there are some middle and high schools, classrooms doing that right now, and they use Google Hangouts or Google Meet for that, which works great in the Chrome, and it looks great on the flat panels.
All right, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, all right, next we are moving to Mr. Lorenzo Valdez for the elementary server refresh.
Good morning, everyone. I'm sitting in for David Wilhelm to present. Did I do something here?
Nope, I'm going to pull it up right now.
Okay. All right, so this is the elementary school server refresh. This probably looks a little familiar. We've done similar presentations for the high schools and middle schools. Okay, this slide here shows that this is funding from referendum for over 10 years. You can see the the start dates of the high schools, fiscal year 21 and 26. That'll be 2 refreshes with that amount right there. Middle schools, we just completed that, I think, a couple years ago, last year. And it'll be refreshed again in 22. The elementary, we just completed this elementary refresh right here in 19. And that'll be redone in 24. And the total will be the $3 million, as you see at the end there. So we have a school server refresh project that's on a 5-year replacement cycle. It's pretty much industry standard. We want to try to avoid and eliminate outages as much as possible. We currently have 23 high schools, 34 middle schools, 110 elementary schools. And we have like 17, I think they might have bumped up to 18 ancillary sites that are changed out during the elementary school server refresh. Some overview of services provided at the school from the host. We have a virtual host at the school. It's one physical server. There was many years ago that we upgraded this. We used to have several physical servers. So we moved over to a virtual environment. So each school hosts multiple functions. Like I said, it's one physical server. It could be up to 10 virtual machines on one of these physical servers. It shows up as savings on hardware, space, cooling, and administrative cost. There's several, virtual machine servers at each school. You have the school food service cash register. There's content manager for endpoint team images and updates. There's the file server for the teacher and the students. And there's management console, print services. There's also backup servers that we do local backups at the site. And they also have test desktop images so that they can do troubleshooting and issues remotely. And of course, because we're virtual, we can add virtual machines as needed very easily. We also can scale out pretty easy the CPU, memory, and the disk. The project status, we replaced all the R520s with the R540s. One thing to note here that we also looked at CPU usage, and we backed off from using 2 CPUs at the servers at the schools to 1 CPU. That affords us the ability to reduce licensing costs for any applications, like the backup applications. They're licensed by CPU, and any other applications in the future that might require that. The project started pretty much on June 6th and ended in September 28th. We actually delivered the new servers to the school, racked them, installed them alongside the old server. We were able to migrate to the new physical host. It's through a process called vMotion. It really is, it's a process that can be done during the day, but we do it at night after hours just to
make sure.
Be precaution, just to make sure that we don't affect students and teachers. We reconfigure the backups on all those servers at the schools, recreate the jobs for the local backups. And also we remove and transfer and decommission the old host. That part of the project is actually has started, but it's going to be finishing here in the next coming month. Just a note that I wanted to bring up too, that the IT infrastructure, they coordinated their efforts during the school police project. They have a video surveillance project. That project actually required new servers, administration, implementation at the schools. And we worked along with them, knowing that we refresh. And the cycle that we refresh, we just told them, hey, listen, we'll work with you. We'll upgrade the storage on the servers that we're not going to refresh coming up. And the servers that are coming up, we'll just add the additional storage so that they didn't have to go through and install servers and administer servers. And, it's going to be a huge savings to the school police. And in addition to that, their project was probably going to be extended a little longer because the way that they were funded, we were able to probably move this project along a lot quicker. Any questions?
What of the content that's on these servers will eventually migrate to the cloud so that you'll need less servers?
Well, I'm sure that when there's a decision made for the files that the students use and the teachers use and administration use, there's a question that, that could be moved. Unfortunately, that's not the only thing that these servers are used for. But that would probably be one of the first moves that I would say that would make sense. Most of the apps, we used to have application servers at the schools. Most of those apps have moved off to the cloud.
It completely changes the funding mechanisms, and I'm dealing with that now, right? You go from a capital model,
yes,
right, to a subscription model, which will challenge all of us, right?
Yes, it will.
And so usually at the life cycle point, so there's a whole bunch of work you have to do, and so you're going through life cycle now. And so my guess is by the time you hit the next life cycle, it'll be smacking us right in the face with respect to what to do next.
Yes.
And I think the school board will have to start to figure that out. We as a company are starting to figure that out, right? And so those subscriptions can get turned on and off, and that's a nice thing from a budget perspective, but today you can run servers as long as you want, potentially.
Yes.
That isn't always the case in the cloud.
They're already stretched on the operating dollars, basically.
Exactly.
So state has to figure it out on the statute, basically.
Yep.
How can we use those dollars, basically? Right now, we can charge against capital. Now, the subscription will be all operating. So that's
and it takes years to figure out how to work through that.
Exactly.
Just a quick question. That's an excellent point. Hadn't even thought about that one. What about the adult ed center? Is that part of the 17, part of high school?
Yes, those are the ancillary sites that I mentioned during the elementary. Yes.
Right, thanks.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you.
Nice job.
That's it. So that brings us to the final item, the next meeting, which is on our calendars for December 5th. And we'll play that as we discussed. We'll keep it on our calendar, and if the agenda doesn't develop because of the holidays, we'll issue a cancellation through email. Is that fine? Any other comments? We haven't had any motions except to approve the meeting minutes, so do we have another motion?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned. Excellent.
Good one, Larry.
Have a good holiday.